in so much space, and a goal!
Manchester City are a club on a forward mission, and since being taken over in 2008 by the Abu Dhabi Group, their owners have poured in millions of pounds with the aim of making them a force in world football. Of course, it was only back in 1999 they were playing in the third tier of English football, and now of course they're competing in the Champions League with Europe's elite clubs. But where did it all begin, and how did they manage this spectacular transformation? I'm on a quest to find out the secrets of Manchester City's journey to success.
With City, it's a really interesting story at the beginning of the club, because what happened was in the 1870s football wasn't widely known in Manchester. There weren't that many teams. There's a lot of rugby, but not really sort of soccer, not association football. And we don't know specifically who said, come on, let's play football. But what we do know is that it was people connected with St Mark's Church in West Gorton, which is only about a mile from City's Clinton Stadium.
The early days also saw the likes of Billy Meredith and Tommy Johnson play an important role in winning Manchester City's first ever honours.
Billy Meredith was really the first major star for City. Well, for Manchester football, he was City's captain and City won the FA Cup. But not only was he captain, he scored the winning goal. So you can just imagine how, if you think about Yaya Toure today and how people talk about Yaya Toure and what he's contributed to City in recent years, well, Meredith was the first to do this. Meredith was the first guy to bring Manchester success. United didn't win a trophy, so he was the first guy to bring Manchester any kind of success, and they loved him.
Despite going through several declines in the late 60s and 70s, City enjoyed their most successful period under the guidance of Joe Mercer and the ever-charismatic Malcolm Allison.
Well, it's funny because the Mercer-Allison partnership was what worked. A lot of people look at kind of like the input that they had, and I think a lot of credit has to go to both of them.
Tactically ahead of his time, and he was just had a batch of players, a little bit like United when they went through the success in the 90s. He had a batch of players like the Bells, Lee, Somerby, Doyle.
Joe, as the father figure, was able to sort of control him, so he could be a little wild and a little bit sort of spontaneous in sort of the things that he did, and yet Joe would rein him in and keep him under control. But he had a magic, he had an understanding, he had a rapport with players. I've talked to many players who played in the great teams around that era. Colin Bell in particular was stood outside the Colin Bell stand, and I was looking up to write Colin Bell's book, and he speaks so highly of Malcolm Allison and says, well, without him telling me how good I was and nurturing me, maybe I wouldn't have become the player that I was. But
I tell you what, Joe, what a wonderful spell you've had since you joined Manchester City.
Yes.
I mean, it's all happened.
Yes, it's amazing.
Second Division Championship, First Division Championship, now you've won the Cup.
Yes, it's like a fairy tale, isn't it?
Allison was what you would call a character. You look at someone like Jose Mourinho these days, where he makes all sorts of outspoken comments.
Got any message for Europe this time? Now you're in the Cup Winners' Cup.
I think we'll definitely get through the first round next year.
Thanks very much, Malcolm.
The late 90s and early 2000s brought many memories to the club. The fans saw numerous managers come and go, the likes of Kevin Keegan, Joe Royle and Stuart Pearce.
Went down to the third division in 98. They were still getting 32,000 at Main Road every week that they played there. Don't think the passion can be denied.
the typical City days, I suppose, comes really from the days of failure, and when things were going wrong. Whenever the expectation level was raised a little bit, suddenly everybody would see it go wrong and they go, well, that's just typical City, isn't it? It hasn't always been like that, and I don't think it's like that anymore, but there certainly was a phase, and from that typical City phrase came this sort of sense of humour that City supporters have developed, which again might change as the club changes, but they became a self-deprecating sense of humour. They're prepared to laugh at themselves. Some of the terrorist chants were quite, in fact some of the terrorist chants now, you know, we never win at home, we never win away, we're MCFC, okay, and that's one of the cleaner ones.
Still existed a few years ago. We were everybody's second club because we were the joke club.
Good from these positions, Marcus Bent! It's 3-0 and Leicester are in dreamland!
In June 2007, former Thailand Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra purchased Manchester City for £81.6 million. This had a massive impact on the club and significant changes were about to follow.
I don't think there was any doubt, not just in my mind, but in most football supporters' minds, that things were about to change for City, definitely.
It was a weird one when he came on board and took over the club, because obviously nobody knew about him. Then all the stories came out about his maybe checkered past in terms of his finances and tax evasion, all these daft things that maybe he'd done in in his own country.
Mr Shinawatra then brought in former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson to try and improve the team.
But the truth was, if you want a chairman that is just like a little bit like Vincent Tan at Cardiff, you know, love him or hate him, he was passionate about what he was involved in. He wasn't just this chairman that was going to sit in a boardroom and make decisions.
We probably have to do some sales of some of our players and loan some of our players.
But Eriksson didn't last too long. So in came in former Manchester United player Mark Hughes to try and take the club to a new level. Thaksin Shinawatra's problems off the pitch led him to selling the club to the Abu Dhabi Group for an estimated £200 million. But what exactly happened? Well, the story unfolds.
Gary Cook was brought in by Thaksin Shinawatra initially to promote the club and to help develop a sort of marketing plan for what City should be. But within a very short period of time, Gary Cook realised that Thaksin Shinawatra couldn't have the finances, he had all the political problems they had, and so he spent a bit of time trying to persuade him to actually sell the club. I think Thaksin Shinawatra always wanted to stay involved as a sort of owner, or 50% or something like that. And Gary Cook said, no, you need to sell it. Nobody's going to buy like 40% of the club. You need to sell it completely. So then Gary Cook started to put together proposals as to what Manchester City was worth in terms of its plans for future, its brand, its image, and all of that sort of thing. And Abu Dhabi showed interest. Now, there's lots of stories as to how that came about. Basically, it then all boiled down to a presentation that Gary Cook made to key figures from Abu Dhabi from the takeover group, and he impressed them with his plans, with his vision, with the way he was talking. And Manchester City at that point, even though they were based at the new stadium, and even though things seemed relatively positive on the pitch, in terms of the way the club was, it was a long way behind.
He was the guy that brokered the deal for Sheikh Mansour to take over. So how big a part has he played in the success of this club? Massive, huge part, huge part.
The new owners are certainly looking for results. They want City to become the biggest club in the Premier League, enticing in the biggest names in the game.
We're going to change the Manchester City forever.
The new owners then ran out of patience in Mark Hughes. So in came in Roberto Mancini from Inter Milan. But this was the beginning of an era. Mancini would then bring in his own array of world-class talent. The likes of Yaya Toure and Sergio Aguero from Barcelona and Atletico Madrid would all prove to be pivotal signings in the club's quest to win trophies. In 2012, Manchester City won the league title for the first time in 44 years.
To me, that's what makes the Premier League special around the world. Because I went to Canada for the summer holidays and people were going, oh, Man City fan. Oh yeah, did you watch the game? No, I was there. And people were like touching you on your arm like, You were there at that game?
As a supporter, as a journalist who's watched City for all these years, so I've gone all those years without seeing them win the league. You know, of course it was highly significant and it was very emotional, and for me to be juggling the journalism side with the fan side was quite tricky really, because you're trying to keep all those emotions that you've got inside from, you know, not from spilling out sort of thing. They did spill out, and I make no apology for that because it's local radio and we're supposed to be a bit partisan.
If you're going to win the league for the first time in 40 odd years, that's the way to do it.
For the actual excitement of that day, I'd love to relive that. I'd relive that every single match if it meant City was successful, because it was just from the low of thinking it's over to the high of thinking we've done it. It's superb.
As we've learned, Manchester City are a club with massive financial backing, a great fan base and world-class talent. With winning silverware high on the agenda, the stakes are high. But what does the future hold for the club and for English football? Well, only time will tell. From here at the Etihad, the home of Manchester City, I'm Michael Knight, and thanks for watching.